So thank you for coming. I'm really happy to see so many people, despite I have so extraordinary talk today, and despite we have a lot of cool talks in parallel. So today we'll talk about fear and loathing in Scala and Kotlin interop. So please raise your hands if you know what is Kotlin. Oh, it's really cool, because a year ago at Devoxx Ukraine, there were really few people who know about Kotlin, who use Kotlin, and today I see almost everyone here is know what it is. And please raise your hand if you know what is Scala and use Scala. Poor people, I understand your pain, but today I will talk about Scala and Kotlin together. Really crazy stuff. So first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Marharyta. For those who don't know me, I work as software engineer at Wix. Probably we heard about this company. We have a booth here, and you can take part in our activity. I'm also an active community member, take part in program committee of Devoxx, and organize some meetups, conferences, so you can like follow me in Twitter and Medium, whatever you want, if you want to follow me. One more important thing. I'm doing boxing almost for 2 years, so think twice when asking tricky questions. So, and a little bit disclaimer. Today, I won't compare Scala and Kotlin, because too many people did it before, and I think that comparing languages is really stupid things, because every language is good for some purpose, and today we won't compare them. We just will try to make a collaboration between Scala and Kotlin. So no comparison, just collaboration. Agenda. So what we actually do today? Today we'll ask really important questions. Why? Why I have this talk? Why do we need this interop between Scala and Kotlin? Because why do sane, healthy, intelligent people would ever combine Scala and Kotlin in one code base? It sounds like a bullshit, but actually for some reason we can do this. Then we'll talk about what is interop, how to use it. Of course, when we are talking about Scala and Kotlin together, we'll have problems, especially with Scala, so we'll talk about these problems. And then I'll show you a little tips and tricks, and of course we'll summarize everything. So first question, why? What do you think? Why do we need this interop?
Because you have a project where there is Scala and Kotlin.
Yeah. Actually, when I asked myself, why do I need this presentation? Why do I need to combine Scala and Kotlin? I had only one answer. Because it's legal. Because no one will punish me, no one will send me to the jail, I can do it, and it's legal, except for this weed. So it was a joke, of course. Sometimes you have to deal with project written in Scala, but you see how you can benefit from introducing Kotlin. And here comes interop, that firstly you need to have some mixed project, and then you should decide whether to stay with Scala or go to Kotlin. So let's go to the history and recall ourselves what is Scala. First of all, when Scala was invented, when Scala was created, it had like two main purposes. First of all, it was a functional academic JVM language. Why is it so? Because actually Java is not really functional at all. It's object-oriented language. And Java has a lot of drawbacks. For example, doesn't have good immutability, a lot of problems with collections, and so on. And we don't really have this like pure functions, and we don't have functional style there. So here comes Scala. Scala wanted to solve this problem, to introduce something academic and something functional to JVM. And on the other hand, and it was cool, on the other hand, a lot of developers who worked with other programming languages and also worked with Java, they understood that Java is old-fashioned. Java is too verbose, and we just need something that is better Java. And Scala, for many years, it solved this problem. It was like functional academic language, and it was a better Java. And actually, Scala community was really split into two parts. But what can I say that philosophically, when you try to solve two different problems, you can solve them in a good way. You just will be some of them will be bad. And here comes Kotlin. Kotlin just has only one problem to solve. It's just pragmatic language and solves the problems of business. Just to be fast, to develop fast, to have less boilerplate, to have less bugs, to have less null pointers, and so on. That's why we have Kotlin. What? Yeah, it's like one, ideologically it's one problem. Just to be like better Java and to be better programming languages for business purposes. No academic, nothing from university, just to be pragmatic. And of course we see these charts and these charts that for some reason Kotlin's popularity is growing really fast and Scala's popularity is going down from years to years. Unfortunately or fortunately, you should decide, but we see this tendency. And that's why a lot of companies try, even Scala-addicted companies, for example, like Wix, like we have a lot of Scala code base, we try to look into Kotlin and to understand what it is, what is the language, should we use it or not, why? Because Kotlin is popular, so a lot of developers use it, they like it, and they like propose this language to other people, and they try to spread this Kotlin popularity because language is really cool. And Kotlin is really simple language. For example, if you hire a junior and he or she knows only Java, it's easier to teach him or her Kotlin than to teach him or her Scala. Of course, it's attractive for employees. For example, like all cool developers who want to be smart, who want to like learn some new things, they all know Kotlin. And if they see that for some vacancies they have Kotlin, they prefer these vacancies than something with Scala. And multi-platform. Kotlin has this cool feature of multi-platform. You can use the one language for Android, for iOS, for web, and for in browser, and for backend, and so on. And it's really cool that you need only to learn one language and to have multiple platforms there. And we cannot mention that Kotlin is developed by the company that is developing IDE, and it's easier to have IDE-friendly language like Kotlin. And for those who worked with Scala, you understand the pain of IDE non-friendly language, because have you worked with Scala in IDE? Do you like the support of Scala in IDE? Yeah, but there are some problems. For example, when you see that it's compiled in IDE, and but it's not compiled in like CMD. And there are a lot of corner cases there, and actually it's not that friendly as Java or Kotlin, and so on. All these features make us think that with Kotlin we can be fast and furious and develop like all this stuff and to earn more money. It's all for business. So that's why our company, for example, Wix, who has a lot of code base in Scala, we started to think how to introduce Kotlin, how to work with Kotlin. I hope I answered the question why. Let's talk further. Let's go further and talk a little bit about interop. So what's interop? According to Wikipedia, it's a characteristic of a system which interface could be used from another system completely without any restrictions. So unfortunately for Kotlin and Scala, we don't have this complete interop, but we have some kind of interop, and we'll talk about this. So it was like a really difficult definition. So let's have an example. What's interop in simple words? For example, in Scala we have this function def main. In Kotlin we have function fun hello and some name, and it prints hello name, and we want to use this hello name from Scala. So this is what we want to do, and this is how looks interop. How can we use it? If you remember that my talk is called Fear and Loathing in Java in Scala and Kotlin interop. So please raise your hand, those of you who have watched the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So if you haven't watched this, you should probably do this because it's a really cool and interesting movie. In few words, it's a movie about drugs, and that's why I have a lot of psychedelic cartoons here. So how can we use it? The story started from a journalist who was asked to make an article into newspaper. So we have some online newspaper written in Scala, And we want to add some new functionality, for example, comments, because it's it's okay to have some comments for articles. And we want these comments to be written in Kotlin. Sounds nice, and let's do this. So let's skip our slides and let's go to IDE. So, do you see the code? And I need to make it bigger. Actually, we have this one module called Online Magazine, and its source code is written in Scala. I don't like presentation mode because everything will be bad, but let's do this. OK. Actually, it's no use because I wanted to show you project structure. So, OK. Sorry. OK, so you see that we have like some controllers, services, repositories, entities, and everything is written in Scala. It's plain Spring Boot, so everything is OK. And we want to introduce Kotlin. In Kotlin, I'm a little bit lazy person, so I don't want to code like right here. And I already did some stuff beforehand. So we have this like comment service, and we have our entity comments here. So you can probably see it. And it's written in Kotlin. So we see pure Kotlin, pure Scala. And let's compile it and understand what we have. So first of all, I need to... it's not what I need. Yeah. So let's compile it and understand what we have. Yeah. It doesn't compile. And what do you see? What do you think is the problem? Why our project that was compiled in IDE, actually IDE didn't show any problem, does not compile in CMD. Actually, finally we face the first problem, and we are going to the next stage problems. The first problem, I call it the revenge of a compiler. Why is it so? What have we done? We just wanted to have our Scala compiler. And our Scala compiler, it knows how to compile Scala source code, because it's his job. Scala compiler knows how to deal with bytecode and how to understand it, and so on. Scala compiler doesn't know about Java source code, but with some magic in Maven, you can apply joint compilation, and you can also compile Java code and understand Java source code. But for some reason, Scala compiler doesn't know about Kotlin source code. Unfortunately, I don't know why. Maybe he's stupid, but he cannot compile Kotlin source code. So it's the problem. It's the first problem, and how can we solve it? Actually, the solution is really simple. And the solution, the first idea that I have, just compile Kotlin first. So let's compile Kotlin first, and we'll have bytecode, and we'll have this good situation. So let's return to our IDE. Let's go to our POM XML. Unfortunately, I'm using Maven. So I am so sorry. It's not Gradle Kotlin DSL, but yeah. And just what I did, I just switched the different plugins. So now Kotlin plugin is first, and Scala plugin is second. You can see. So let's compile. I even do it with clean in order to be sure that everything will compile. So please compile. Actually, it compiles because it started my tests. Yeah, it started tests, so everything is compiled, everything is OK. And we like won the compiler. So compiler sucks, and we are smart. But here comes another problem. What if our Kotlin code depends on Scala code? If our Kotlin code depends on Scala code, we can have the opposite situation. Kotlin compiler is smart. He knows how to compile Kotlin code because it's his job. He knows how to deal with bytecode. And by the way, Kotlin compiler knows how to compile Java code without any plugins, without any magic, because he just knows how to do this. But for some reason, JetBrains forgot to tell Kotlin compiler how to compile Scala code. maybe we should report a bug for this. And that's why if we have this Silk Road dependency, we still have a problem. We still cannot compile this code. So do you have any solution for this, how to solve this? Yeah, I have a solution. Actually, it's also very simple. Here comes modularization. So you can compile just small pieces of your code separately. And you can divide your code into independent modules. So I did it for you. We won't do it right now. I just created these 4 modules. First module is Online Magazine Core. It's Online Magazine that we had before, but written in Scala. Then we had Online Magazine Kotlin. It's the part that we wanted to be written in Kotlin, and everything that's Kotlin is there. Then I saw that there are a lot of common things there, and we created some common module. By the way, you see that in this common module, we have Kotlin and Scala files together. It's OK because they don't depend on each other. And I also have Online Magazine Server. It's another module with some server configs and so on. And so here comes modularization. And if we compile it in different modules, so we don't need this anymore, we can see that everything will be OK. So probably you can see that now we have 4 different modules here. And actually, it's also OK here. So now we want the compiler, and everything should be OK. So let's proceed. The problem number 2. The problem number 2 is Scala collections. What is the problem with Scala collections? Actually, if you worked with Scala and you worked with Java, you know that Scala collections are not Java collections. It's the only problem for them, and it's the main pain for them. Because you know that Java collections, they are not immutable. And when Scala was invented, and it wanted to be functional, wanted to be academic, and they said that pure functions, we need to have pure functions, we need to have immutable collections, and we need to have our own collections library. And that's why Scala collections are not Java collections. But if you know, if you work with Kotlin, actually Kotlin collections under the hood are Java collections. So they're the same collections. And they solve the problem of immutability in different way. And if we see these 2 statements, we can have the third statement that Kotlin collections are not Scala collections. And, but actually, we sometimes need somehow to use them. So how can we use it? There are a bunch of converters, for example, for list converter and so on. And you can actually convert Scala list to Java list and use it from Kotlin. But what if I don't want to convert? I just want to use Scala list, for example, because Scala list has some method that does not exist in Kotlin. So why not to use Scala collections directly? What do we have? Mostly for collections method, we have some lambda parameters for maps, for transforms, for filters, and we need to pass their lambda. And we remember that when in Java were introduced functional interfaces and lambdas, it was done in a really smart way. They did a created functional interface, the interface with only one abstract method, and you can convert it to lambda. So if you use it from Kotlin, you can pass lambda there. So why not to do the same with Scala? So I probably wanted to use to write the same code in Scala, and when I did it for the first time, I found this mem because we cannot easily pass lambda into Scala method. Why? Because if we go into Scala code and we look into interface function 1, which is actually should be functional interface, it's not a functional interface. Why? Because we have 3 abstract methods: apply, compose, and then. And that's why we have no way to pass a lambda instead of this. So it's a problem. We can still solve it. We can have this dirty hack. We can create anonymous class and extend abstract function, but it's really dirty, it's really not really cool, not fun, and I don't want to write this code. And please raise your hand if you want to write this code. So no one wants to write this because it's really stupid. So wait, it was before Scala 2.12. And after Scala 2.12, what do you have? They fixed this stuff, and function 1 became functional interface, and we can pass our lambdas there, and everything is OK. So now we can work with Scala collections directly. And that's why not we fix the problem, but Scala compiler developers fix this problem. The problem number 3, Scala implicits. Please raise your hand, those of you who don't know what is Scala implicit. Who don't know? Don't be shy. Actually, sometimes people think they know, but they don't know. Oh, it was a funny story when I did this talk for the first time, actually the second time. I was doing it for Kotlin developers, and half of them were Android developers, and everything was okay, nothing was really bad. And at some point, I say Scala implicits, and I was expecting that half of the audience will just go away, but they remain seated, a little bit shocked, but seated. So even Kotlin developers can understand Scala implicits, so let's just look into it a little bit. In Scala, we mark parameter, for example, as implicit. If we want to omit it somehow, we don't want to pass it directly. We want compiler to find this parameter somewhere, somehow, and to pass it instead of us. So something like this. Yeah. So I'll have some small implicit example. For example, we want to have converter. We want to convert something A to something B. It's like the most stupid stuff, but we do it every day. Maybe in this way it's more clear for you. So we want to convert something to something else. Okay. You can take photos, you can tweet it. It's all about this. I hope organizers won't punish me for this slide, because I'm actually not promoting drugs, just for fun. So we have the straight converter to convert something from A to B. So we have the straight, and we have this method convert. And in order to convert, in general, we need to have object of type A, and we need to have this method how to convert. We need to have this. Actually, we need to have this converter, how to convert. So how we do it in Scala? In Scala, we usually implement it through a companion object, for example, called converter. It's called the same name as the trait. And then we have a method convert, which takes 2 parameters. One parameter is the object we want to convert, and the next parameter is how to say it? Is the way we want to convert from one to another. And you see that we mark this parameter as implicit. Why we mark it as implicit? Because we don't want to pass it explicitly. We want to omit it, and we want compiler to somehow understand where to find it and to pass it instead of us. And what we need to do, we just need to call a method convert from our converter and pass object. And if we want to have some specific implementation, for example, to convert something from comments to comment. Comments, it's, for example, it's entity in our database, and comment is a DTO for our web interfaces. So here comes our direct implementation. You see it's also marked as implicit in order to have this match that this converter can be put here. So it's called converter comment entity, for example, and it's converter with concrete types. So we have this method convert, and we have this implementation of the method. So we just tell our compiler how to convert from comments to comment. So it was an example, and how can we use it? In Scala, we can use it very easily. We just make this import. It's static import in Scala. And then we call method convert. So it's very easy. You see that we call method convert, and we pass only object. And somehow compiler understands that he needs to find this implicit parameter. He goes to this converter, to this object, and find this implicit value, and pass it here implicitly. So, and that's why you can use it just for convert. It was Scala, because it was defined for Scala, it was developed for Scala, but how can we use it in Kotlin? Actually, it's really funny stuff, and we can use it in Kotlin. How to do this? First of all, we need to go to IDE. We need to go to IDE. We need to find bytecode, because when I don't know how to work with this, I usually go to bytecode. I go to our trait. I won't show you bytecode. I just decompile it to Java. So decompile Scala to Java, and what can we see? We see this stuff. Here is our method convert, which has only one object. And here is convert comment DTO. We have this method, convert comment DTO, and here also convert comment entity. So we just need to find where it's situated. Situated in convertible, in this, okay, it's here. So you can see that it's method of this object. So actually, I don't want you to dig much into this. You just need to understand that you can find it through bytecode. And you can easily do this import. You find that this converter lies in converter modules. And you see how to call it. So actually, it's not that cool as from Scala, because it's not natively developed for Kotlin. But you still can use these methods because they are compiled to bytecode, and Kotlin understands this bytecode. So you can do this hack, but you can work with it. So, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I understand what you mean, yeah. Yeah, I understand what you mean. I just wanted to maybe to show the simplest variant how to do this, the most general. Okay, I will refactor it. Thank you for your comment. Not right now. Okay. So I just wanted to show to people like how it works. So okay, it was just for example. We don't do this stuff in our production. So problem number 4, that in Scala we can actually overload everything. So we can use operators overloading, and in Scala you can do whatever you want. At some point you can find your code looks like this. Actually, it's not from our production code, but I found something similar to this. And it's not that good. Yeah, but actually in Scala you can implement, like, overload this operator. So let's do this in Scala. Let's overload, for example, operator called tilde tilde tilde. I just wanted to do this. And in Scala, we can call it this way, like operator or like method. How to call it from Kotlin? To call it from Kotlin, we still need to go to bytecode. And one moment. I don't understand where I am. Yeah, video comment. Mm-hmm. You see that here is this operator, but let's look how it's decompiled to Java. To see how it decompiled to Java, use this method, and we need to search. And here we found this, our actually operator is compiled to this stuff. So actually, you can use it from Kotlin like this way. Actually, it's not that good. I don't recommend you to do this, but if for some reason you need to use some operator from Scala in your Kotlin and Java code, you can do this using this algorithm. By the way, there is one more interesting thing. For example, if you want to overload in Scala, if you define in Scala code your method plus, in Kotlin, you can use it this way, and you can use it this way. And it's not only about plus, it's about minus, it's about multiply, it's about all other operators that are defined and can be overloaded from Kotlin. So thank you for this. It's OK. Operators overloading is OK. We work with this. So the next problem is Scala types problem. Actually, it's not the problem with Scala types. The problem is mostly with compiler versus IDE. For example, if I want to inherit from case class, I don't know why I need this, but if for some reason I want to inherit case class in Kotlin, actually in Scala as well, if I do this, I see that IDE tells me that it's not good. We have some problem here. But if we try to compile it that's OK. If we try to compile our project, we will see that everything is OK and we have no compile time errors. So it looks like IDE says you shall not pass, but compiler says go. And so let's not wait for all this shit. Just believe me, it's OK. The next problem is bounded types. If for some reason, you need to, we want to have some bounded type. For example, we want to have this comment container. What did I say? That I have comment container which holds some comment and holds something that it extends from comment. And I expect that I can put there only something that is extended from comment. But when I do it from my Kotlin code, for example, the same stuff we have also for Scala, so it's like a bug in ID. We see that we try to pass integer. It's not extended from comment, but we still see that there is no compile time error. So when you're programming, do it, for example, for your daily job, you see that everything is OK, and you program then, and you write another lines of code. But when you try to compile it, you'll see that we have this problem. We have this problem that our comment container gets integer, but integer is not does not extend comment. So actually, what did we see? We see that IDE says go, so go forward, program more and more, and compiler says you shall not pass. So the only summary I can get from this that everybody lies except for compiler. So believe only compiler. Do not believe your IDE. The next problem is asynchronous code. So asynchronous code is a little bit painful. So let's start from Scala. In Scala, we have awesome features. So let's proceed to our code. For example, we have this method b, which returns future, which returns hello, just string hello. And it's Scala future. So how can we use it from Kotlin? In order to use it from Kotlin, we need to have one dirty hack, even two dirty hacks. First of all, we get this future. It's Scala future. But in order to work with it, we cannot work directly with Scala futures because there are problems with passing some lambdas and some methods. And it's easier to work with Java futures or some Kotlin coroutines. So in order to convert our Scala futures to completable future, we have this converter. And before Scala 2.12, we needed to convert it using some library. But with Scala 2.12, we have this converter built in our IDE, or built in our Scala library. So I guess something wrong with my IDE. So let's return to our presentation. So in order to work with asynchronous code with Scala futures, we need to convert them to completable future and then to convert it to coroutine. How to convert it to coroutine? I mean, not to convert, but if we use Kotlin Java 8 extension, we can have a wait function on completable future, and we can work with it as it is coroutine. Because working with completable future is not that fun as working with coroutines directly. But what if you want to use some suspend functions from Scala? I mean, we have some suspend function in Kotlin. For example, sorry. One moment. For example, we have it here in our source code. We have suspend function do something. And let's use it from Scala. When we try to use it from Scala, sorry. Do something. Yes. Yeah. When we try to use it from Scala, for example, do something, we see that we need to pass some parameter here, continuation. Because when we work with coroutines, we need to work with continuations, and there is no way to pass it explicitly here, because it's implicit parameter in Kotlin. That's why there is no way to call suspend function from Scala. But we still need these suspend functions for some reason. How to make an overhead, how to deal with it. To deal with it, we need to return to our Kotlin code, and we need to write a wrapper on this. So we have this do something async. It's not suspend function, but it's a function that returns completable future, for example. And we just use our global scope future coroutine builder. We do the same stuff. And now we can use it, do something async. And you see there are no compile time errors. You still can see that we can convert it to Scala future and use it in Scala, or we can use it as it is and work with completable futures. So in order to work with suspend functions from Scala, we need to have this coroutine. And then we need to wrap it into a completable future or in any other future. And then you just can use it like in Scala future or use it as it is. And I guess the problem number 7, it's not about code, it's more about psychologically. When you work with multilingual project, when you have in one module or in one project a lot of different languages, it's really difficult to switch between them. Especially when these two languages or 3 languages are really similar. Like Java, Scala, and Kotlin, they're similar to each other. And so for some point, you understand that I don't really understand where I am. Am I in Scala? Am I in Kotlin and Java code? And it's really difficult to work for a long time this way. So for me, I found out that a multilingual project is a good way to start, to try something, to learn how it works, to learn how interop works, but you cannot go to production with it for a long time. Then you need to split it, or you need to stay with your current language, or you need to go to your new language. But a multilingual project is not something really good for production, for like long-term support. So that's all about problems. Actually, it's not all about problems, but it's like for the first time. And if you like this talk, if you have some comments, if you have something to add to this talk, I really appreciate it because I think and I know that there are more and more problems in this way. So a little bit about tips and tricks. I found out this interop algorithm for Scala and Kotlin, how to work with this. So first of all, try use it as it is. So just think how you could use it and try to do this. If it doesn't work, find compiled code, decompile it to Java, or if you cannot read bytecode. If you can, you just can skip this step. So check Java decompiled code and find how you can use it from Java, as from Java. If you don't know how to just search for it in Google or in any other search service. And the last step is compile in CMD. Do not believe your IDE because IDE always lies. Not always, but sometimes lies. And one more useful tip, never ask about Scala and Kotlin interop. I tried. So search via Java interop. And next tips and tricks, just what I found when we worked on this stuff, is first of all, split into modules in a smart way. Then decompiled code is your friend, and bytecode is your friend as well. Then think about compile order, because if you have like 2 languages in one module, you should think what will be compiled first. Then keep your code clean, because it will help all the time. Even if you have only one language, it always helps you if your code is clean. And read docs, because actually all this stuff is in docs, and you can find it easily. And summary. So today we found out that there is no source level interop between Scala and Kotlin. There is bytecode level interop. It's another level. So some things are restricted, some things cannot be used, but the bytecodes that can be read is easily to interop. So Kotlin can be integrated into existing Scala project. But as I already told you, it's not for long term. IDE support actually is not that bad. I expected more errors, but I found only 2 or 3 bugs, like really bad bugs. And don't be afraid of mixed projects, because actually it's a good way to learn the technology from the other side, to understand how it works, to understand what is under the hood. But actually, it's not good for production. And then last summary point, I've added it today, because I was told that using GraalVM polyglot, we can do it easily. Actually, I don't believe it. But if you like this talk, if you have something to add, if you want to talk to me about this, I'd like to hear your comments, to hear your support. And if I prepare the next volume of this talk, I'll probably try to use GraalVM and prove or disprove that it's better or not better than this way. So there are some useful links. It's my project. It's Scala and Kotlin interop docs. And thank you for your attention. Thank you for being so calm. And actually, it's time for your questions.
Is Scala dynamic language?
No, it's statically typed language.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
What language will you choose for the new project, Scala or Kotlin?
Why do you restrict me to these 2 options? Actually, it depends on the project. I like Kotlin very much. It's like my favorite language, but I still understand that for some purposes, you maybe need Node.js with TypeScript. For some purposes, you need Python. I don't know why, but maybe for some reason. So I don't restrict myself to Scala and Kotlin or Java. I just try to use the best tool And actually, that's what we are doing at Wix as well. So, thank you.